I wouldn't have gotten this far without you. So, what am I going to do if you start doubting yourself?
When we last left off, Kite and company had just deleted the third phase of the Cursed Wave, resulting in Morgana losing another piece of herself and the damage to the system being plainly visible now outside of the infested areas. I gotta warn you people, this is where the game really starts to get long and tedious. In Infection or Mutation, you can pretty much clear a dungeon in a max of 30 minutes. Outbreak, however, is where you begin to experience dungeons that can take up to an hour to clear, even with experience behind you. Once more we open on the desktop with new news and mail. Of note is the news that CC Corp is outright blaming hackers for the recent problems, specifically Helba. Way to spread propaganda, CC Corp. That's an excellent business model. You know, the WNC after something like this would have opened an investigation. I already said in the opening backstory that the governments of the world are really anal about them after the Pluto's kiss. Some authorities should have already been investigating. Wiseman lets you know he'll be out of touch, and a mail from CC Corp informs you Sigma server will be coming online now. Grunties also can now search for items when you ride them in the field. Try it out using the triangle button. And in Carmina Gadalica, Kite encounters Mia, and either she is not feeling well or she is stoned off her ass. What? Considering she and Elk collect grass, others have made that assumption before.
You. There aren't many people here today. I get it now. It's because there's a festival. The barriers have been lifted, they're all gone. We can go back and forth freely now. Isn't that wonderful?
Mia?
Don't touch me!
Mia goes off to find Elk, leaving Kite alone as pretty much every person you call isn't available right now. And back in your mail, Mr. wants to meet you on the Delta server, with the board also having a threat about an enemy none of the players can kill. And since the board isn't being censored, it means CC Corp has their hands full. On Delta server, Mistral has some surprising news.
I'm a housewife, and I'm going to have a baby soon!
Yeah, she's been pregnant for a while, likely the entire time Kite has known her. And after she finally believes Kite about the craziness they've fallen into, she came to realize that if she was sent into a coma like the others, not only would it harm her and her husband, but her child as well. It's a really good reason to write her out of the games for the time being, even if it leaves us down to one Wave Master to call on for healing, since Elk is routinely unavailable. And to think, people bitched about there being only one dedicated party healer in GU until the post-game, despite them being available for 95% of that time. Whereas, IMOC had 3 healers introduced over the games that constantly made themselves unavailable, so only left you with the one who had not been optimized for healing. Imagine creating such character imbalance. Black Rose meets with Kite at Carmina and have some small talk, Kite having a crisis of resolve. Especially since to them, it appears that doing the right thing has only been making things worse. In the all is lost moment!
I don't know anymore if what we're doing is the right thing. Every time we jump into action, something awful happens. That is the truth. Beaumonk may be right.
No, he isn't. He decided to go by dogma, and believing the dogma without question is what exasperated this thing in the first place.
There's no way to tell if it's bad or good.
But...
Ugh! Will you cut it out? This is stupid and it's really pissing me off! Stop and think about why we risk our lives to do all these terrifying, dangerous things in the first place! Whining over this situation isn't going to help!
The old Orca thread has a new post, giving us our first keyword set on the Sigma server. Sigma server's root town is Fort Alth, up either in the mountains or suspended in the sky, with said root town being mainly made up of rather large, lengthy paths connecting the shops and the Chaos Gates. Like before though, no one's on call, so you're going to have to do this alone. Also, like before with Mutation, Outbreak has memory events related to Sign, this time as data ghosts. Data ghosts occur at designated locations and are pretty well mapped at this point in online guides. They can be completed immediately after getting access to Sigma server, but only one character appears at a time. Once you've come across a character 6 times, the next one unlocks. It's good to look for these as they supply items you can use early on, such as more gold and silver grunties, and a few of the cast weapons such as Silver Knight's sword and BT and Tsukasa's wands. However, if you missed out on the flashback events in Mutation, you will be out of luck for the majority of them. And for completing the ghost event, you're awarded with a wallpaper that features the sign cast that fills in as each ghost is met. Anyways, back to the plot. The area Sigma Chatting Snaring Twins is locked by 2 E-virus cores, and no one is available to go with you as said before. And yes, I checked, even Puros, who I loathe, is out right now. So stock up on supplies to keep yourself alive. If you've used Data Drain enough times, then good news! Data Drain has evolved once more into 2128 Drain, which is actually worth casting. 2128 Drain increases the odds of obtaining rare items from Data Drain, and has thus been redubbed Rare Drain by many fans. And if you remember to grab the lucky shoes last time, now would be a good time to cast Rig Seam and Rig Geem to keep your health and skill points recovering since, as said, this is one of the few times you play solo in the game, so it's easier to be overwhelmed and get an accidental game over here. In the dungeon, you get pieces of what I can only assume to be a fragment of Harold's notes, considering it speaks of the nature of AI. Descent, though, is slow going due to having to fight everything alone, with also there being a new feature in the dungeons. Dead-end rooms you usually find destructible objects in now carry sparkling data packets that have virus cores, meaning even normal players can come across them now. They're good to keep an easy supply of virus cores from the lower level fields on hand, but like drainings before, the pickup is rather random. At the bottom we have a data-bugged Iron Ball Titan, a tough monster even without the invulnerability, and all of people, Ballmug is fighting it.
I can't outrun it!
Kite covers Ballmug, and together the two take it down. Ballmug's been thinking about things since the events at Netslum, realizing, as I've been saying, that he's been an idiot.
The power itself isn't good or evil. There are only evil intentions.
And this gets Kite to reflect on Aura's words and how they're clues and keys to their own salvation. This event has actually proved to mend the resolves of both, Ballmug apologizing for his prior actions as he realizes he's been played and led around by his nose. So finally, I can stop calling the guy an idiot as he offers his hand to Kite in both friendship and to the cause of freeing the trapped players. It actually serves as a really well-constructed and moving scene. To be honest, I've hated using Ballmug as a punching bag in his stupidity the last 2 games, but to be fair, he shows character development and his hatred towards Kite's bracelet did come from a reasonable source. It hacks the system, and hackers have a high stigma against them in the world of .hack. But when he ignored the trust Orca had in him, the actions and character of Kite in the use of the bracelet, and was used as a puppet by Leos who was even more pig-headed than Ballmug, well, that's what I saw was stupid and had to call it out as it was. Sometimes all it takes to shift a jerk antagonist into an ally is an epiphany that they are fighting for abstract reasons that don't matter, and then for them to offer an apology. I have seen so many series who screw up in the same way, where a character who does something wrong is never held accountable for it, nor is made to apologize, and that resultantly ruins the popular appeal of them. And it is so cathartic, and again a testament to how well written these games are, for once that this gets acknowledged and for Ballmug to actually own up to his own mistakes and go through what's needed to make it right. It improves the appeal of the character and thus settles such an issue for the audience to then give them a chance to win them over. It's basic writing 101! Anyways, Ballmug elaborates on why he and Orca sought out the Creator's Runes to begin with, in hopes of getting to the bottom of the problems and bugs in the system. Orca apparently knowing more about their purpose than Ballmug did.
It was obviously an unusual and a bizarre alien place. Then Orca said, Morgana, mode gone.
likely in part the reason Aura tried to first give him the book. In the next room is another creator's room and another epitaph fragment. Though in the room, dead butterflies are never a nice thing to see. In the mail is a message from Black Rose, asking to meet at the statue of the girl. This of course being code for the Hulgrants Cathedral. Yes, no matter the game or part of the franchise, it is inescapable you will make at least one trip here. This time, it is so Black Rose can explain to Kite about Hirokazu, and how he's a lost one. And she was there when he fell comatose, so took it upon herself to find out a way to save him. She only briefly mentioned him in Mutation, but it shows the trust the two have built towards each other over the past events to confide in him like this, even if she is admitting she's scared at what is to come. With Kite's own resolve reinforced from the meeting with Balmug, he in turn reassures Black Rose, and she goes back to check on her brother. On the board, the goblins are once again back for battle, and a new player named Terajima Ryoko is asking for assistance in learning the game. Though in the mail, there is also a whole host of messages from everyone Kite has befriended thus far. Wiseman also has something for us on Sigma server, Nuke, Gardenia, and Sanjuro have areas to hit, and Marlowe informs Kite that he is after a monster called a Necrotic Eye, whose location is on the board. Additionally, Wiseman informs Kite that there are 5 phases left to kill, plus Kubia, before the cursed wave of the poem is over, giving up a virus core. And additionally, in a third email Wiseman sent us, has more info. The direct keywords to Netslum, Lambda Pulsating Truth's core. Didn't think Alba would have any other way in. I guess the one used last game was a backdoor. First on the docket is Sigma attracting Fated Ebb and Flow, where Nuke is trying to rekindle his love of the game with a challenging area. To do this, fight the Water Demon at the bottom of the dungeon. Apparently he needed experience for an act he was going to put up, but he's been challenging too weak of an enemy to really be able to get the feeling for it. Next is Spun Bloody Tragedy, containing the Necrotic Eye Marlowe wanted to fight. Beware, the area has Gaia Turtles, which have physical tolerance. If you have wood spells or a wave master in your party, you'll be fine. Necrotic Eyes, though, are actually going to become more common enemies down the line, but this one fight now is tough enough as it is. Water spells work best. Apparently Marlowe had fought one before, and was completely owned by it while his companions fled. And normally I'd bash them for running when it's just a game, but this is an MMO where you can be sent into comas by playing it. And as if by divine timing, Marlowe's former companions come by now and try to apologize. Marlowe is of course his abrasive self, as he, like many, doesn't enjoy being abandoned like that, and took it as a sign of betrayal, but eventually accepts their apologies.
Marlowe, will you come with us next time?
Damn it, I get that enough from Natsume. Now the character NPCs are doing it. Sanjuro is once more seeking a rare sword at Soaring Sky Madness Compass, but it's actually a quiz event. Similar to the event seen in Sign, the answers are all simple guesses, and if you answer it wrong, it returns the party to a previous room, or if answered right, advances you. I'm assuming the questions were changed for the English language release, as those don't seem to relate at all to Swords or Sanjuro's interests, or have the complexity of the event Bear, Mimuru, and Tsukasa took part in during Sign. The sword is in the God statue, and in return for it, Sanjuro gives Kite the secret Reason Book, which raises magical defense by 2 points. Cracked Worst Milestone is where we find Terajima Ryoko, who I will just simplify to Ryoko for sake of time. Somehow, Ryoko made it all the way to the 5th floor at level 1. Yeah, she is a real newbie to the game, and Kite guides her out back to the root town. For his help, Ryoko gives her member address, but it will be some time before she will be up to snuff to fight with the crew. Ryoko is the last recruitable character until the post-game of Quarantine, and she is completely useless. She's a heavy axeman, which considering I don't like Puros in the IMAC era might make you think I'd use her more than him, and I don't, because I wasn't kidding about how bad she is. She will always be below the party level. If you give her good equipment, she can't use it properly. Her spell usage, even when you tell her to use them, is awful. And worst of all, she's inserted into the game as a love interest fake-out for Kite when, yeah, 2 games in, people clearly shipped Kite with Black Rose, which all culminates in a mission in Quarantine that's just, no. I was actually more lenient on her in the original reviews, but when I came back to re-review Outbreak, I realized how worthless she is. And that's really a microcosm of a bigger problem IMOC as a game series had, though one a lot of people don't understand, so idiotically make a dumb criticism of .hack.gu, where IMOC fanatics bitched about how there were viewable recruitable companions through the main story and had a lot more locked off until post-game, citing IMOC's larger library. However, this criticism always ignored what was wrong with IMOC's companions. The quantity of recruitable characters is not the same as the quality put into them. Nearly every recruitable character in GU did something for the story and were active as part of it outside of their use as a party member. And with a larger number of player classes, there was less overlap in overuse of classes. That meant all of them had great quality put into them and tangible individual value. IMOCs? Not so much. The quantity meant they were all weak characters as a result, as there was not given the proper rotational focus to them in IMOC to fill out events or their relevance outside of their side quest missions. You get 2 and 4 of every one of the 6 classes in IMOC as party members, but outside of 7 of the party members in absolute total, they have no actual story role in the game. And because there are so many of them, there is not a proper rotational focus to actually develop them as characters, or see why they would have any role or importance in the overarching story of this game. Now, I like Rachel, Marlo, and Usagi Maru, and they were interesting and quirky additions to the party and mutation. But at no point did I ever feel like I needed 2 more Blade Masters and another Long Arm. I already had Mia and later Balmug in the former case for that, was trying to recruit Orca, who's another, while Gardenia was more interesting as a character with a aloof attitude, and was considered such a fan favorite despite there being little done with her, that she's the only one of the non-important party members to get a Gashapon figure of her made, and is likely the reason why we don't have one for Mia. As for Moonstone, why is he even here? He doesn't even do anything! And it's the same with Ryoko. I didn't like our existing Heavy Axeman party member. We didn't need another one in what is arguably the game's most useless class, since they didn't do anything special that a Blade Master or Heavy Blade already didn't do. Oh, they give us new areas to explore to level up in, and act as a seed for leveling up their affection rating for the email chains that didn't explore their characters? Well, what was stopping CyberConnect from doing that twice or more a volume, so we'd be able to get to know them better, and for them to then have an actual effect and influence on events, or the characters around them? You know, like the characters referred to in or are an active part of the next game series actually have over there? In IMOC, you could cut in half the 15 characters you have access to before the 5 you get in the post-story content of Quarantine that brought the total up to 20, and lose nothing of importance. In GU, you amass a pool of 21 party members, 22 if you count Ovan in Reconnection, only 14 of which you get before the post-game of Redemption. And even then, only 10 or 11 of whom you could use with any regularity through the longer story. But I can't name a single character among them, with the exception to Tabby, that has that happen to them. They actually all have a role and relevance to telling the story of GU, and it's where any of them end up redundant to another so severely. Moving on, Gardenia's area is Dolores' Promised Clavicle, where she opens the dungeon exploration with asking about death. Her dialogue making one think that she might be dying in real life.
I would want to lie in a field with flowers and quietly wait for that time to come. And I will return to Mother Earth and nurture the flowers. No, don't mind me. The lifespan of a flower is extremely short. But in that brief moment in time, it lives with all of its might.
Gardenia?
The god statue at the bottom has the secret might stat book, whereat Gardenia says her goodbyes. Turns out her lines are concerning death were just a misunderstanding, with her being over-philosophical about changes as she's actually going to be absent from the game for a time. On the Lambda server are 2 areas for us to hit. First is Pulsating Truth's core to Netslum, where Tartaga has a message from Helba, requesting Kite head to an area alone. Additionally, there's a data-bugged enemy that needs clearing out. Helba's area is Sigma-tested Quicksilver Valkyrie, and at the bottom is a data-bugged Komod Goo. Clear it out. What was the point of this? Well, the area was a test of Kite's strength and ability. Understandable, as Kite is the only one that can cast Data Drain. What incited this happening was Wiseman had sent her a message earlier about coordinating attacks against the Cursed Wave, and she just needed to see if he was up for it and would follow through to the end. An email from Wiseman lets Kite know of an increase in data in a specified area. Previous charting means there's likely a phase there, so be prepared with some training in higher level areas. The area, Turbulent Distrusting Ice Wall, requires 4 O virus cores that should have been collected by now from various databugs in the game, a G core, and an H core. Helb has hacked the party chat to give occasional advice, and to run a system gen around the area, so Leos and CC Corp will not interfere, allowing us to freely fight the 4th phase, Featshell the Prophet.
What the hell? It's a mask this time!
Featshell's primary methods of attack over the other phases are the use of status-inflicting spells, though his specials are the ones to worry about, of course. They aren't instant casts, instead charging up. Once more, the elemental drinks are invaluable here, as his specials are all elemental, being of the thunder, earth, and water elements. Additionally, if you happen to have a few spare equipment items that boost the resistance to those types, the weight between the cast and the damage can allow for less damage to be inflicted by equipping them. Also, obligatory reminder that Featshell can cast Data Drain. Draining Featshell in turn causes its second form to emerge, and the second fragment of aura is cleaned by Kite once it's down. However, as it falls, the Oracle of the Phases leaves behind a prophecy.
Like a frenzied horse that is driven, an unseen wind of plague shrieks across the border. Pandemonium, wailing, and the stench of carnage fills the air. There's no place to run, no hope of escape. Those who are mourned will never return. The hands of time cannot be turned back.
That does not sound good at all. Was that another piece of the epitaph, or an attempt at Morgana trying to subvert what is predicted to come?